Please welcome Bryant Chou, co-founder and CTO at Webflow.
Awesome. How is everyone feeling? This is the very last lightning talk of the whole day. So hang in there. Hopefully this will go quickly, and then we're going to see a really awesome closing keynote. So I'm gonna hopefully tell a story here to keep you guys on your feet. Today I'm going to talk about spending your cash on customer experience and not your servers. So no code, we all know of no code as kind of thinking of it as like a hobbyist type of thing, where you can go from a blank canvas, you can put some stuff together, and you can go 0 to 1 really, really easily. So I'm here to tell you today that no code doesn't stop from 0 to 1. No code is actually about bringing you from 1 to 100 so that your business can help you scale, and hopefully no code solutions can be a part of it the whole way. All right, so I'm going to tell a quick story here. So it's 2009. I am a relatively junior engineer at Intuit, and it's in the middle of the financial crisis, right? So I'm working at a company called Intuit. They make TurboTax, Quicken, Mint, and literally I'm sitting there, and we're in the middle of this massive org reorg, right? We don't really know where the business is going to invest, and I really don't have a job. So essentially, I'm spending 8 hours a day sitting at my desk, really not doing very much. And as an ambitious engineer just coming out of school, I'm just yearning to create something. So for those that remember, 2009, this was around Android 1.5. So Cupcake just came out. And as this young developer, I was thinking, it was oh, cool, I can make an app pretty much, and in a day have it running on my phone. I go to the T-Mobile store, I buy a new Android phone, and it's one of those sidekicks where you push up the screen and the keyboard pops out. Do you guys remember those? And I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking, well, I've got all this time on my hands. I really, really want to make something. What can I make? And I think back to my childhood, and I loved playing with walkie-talkies, something like this size. And I would go with my friends, he'd be across the street, and we'd just be chatting with each other. And I came up with this idea to create this Android app, and I called it Hoot. And Hoot, the way it worked was it was an Android app, and you open it up, and on the home screen there's just this big red button, and you hold it down, and you talk into it, and when you let go, you can actually pick from a list of contacts who you want to send that asynchronous voice message to. So at Intuit, I was spending some time, not during work, building this out. And literally in 3 weeks, I managed to learn the Android SDK, and I launched it on the development store, or the Play Store. Or it wasn't even called the Play Store then. And I kind of forgot about it, right? So I check about 2 weeks later. It's kind of not really getting very much steam. But then all of a sudden, I get a bill from AWS. And I built the back end on EC2 and S3, and the bill came out to be $300. And I was like, $300? That's essentially my entire year's worth of beer money. So I was like, I can't afford this thing. And I checked the Google Play Store, and it's now the number 10 trending app on the free list. And essentially, I went from having 10 DAUs to close to 10,000 DAUs in about a month, because it was a way. It kind of was just spreading virally, right? And I was just thinking to myself, holy shoot. I'm really working on my language. I have an 18-month-old daughter. Holy shoot. I could either spend a lot of time working on this app, making it better, because it was just still so raw, tons of bugs, or I have to go scale the server, make it more performant. And essentially, I made a really tough call to actually shut it down. So today, I want to fast forward 10 years. Here's what makers can do today. Well, sorry, before I get there, here's what makers used to do. You used to have to hire someone. You used to learn how to scale databases, scale servers horizontally, or you have to fail at it. And then, even if you do those things well, you have to spend a lot of time managing that infrastructure. And today, makers can build the best possible product with their customers, and they can work on the things that actually matter. And those things are marketing, growth, leveraging the data that you're collecting from your product, and as well as automation. I'm going to get into this. So here are the things that Webflow does for you so that you actually don't have to think about some of the problems that I thought about back in 2009. These things are security, maintenance, and scalability. So real quick with security. So these are the most common WordPress attack vectors, right? So you got DDoS, you got brute force attacks with like the WP-admin password brute forcing, cross-site scripting, as well as managing like your WordPress versions and PHP versions. Literally, when you're using WordPress or when you're using Webflow, you don't have to worry about any of that. We manage all of that for you. We do regular pen testing. So these are all things that you literally do not have to worry about. Second one is scalability. Get this. Webflow serves 2 billion page views a month. So if you actually count it all up, Webflow is essentially a top 50 Alexa website. So when you're hosting with Webflow, you're actually getting the benefits of thousands of websites that have chosen to host with us. And we've used the economies of scale to build world-class infrastructure so that you don't have to do that. So a little bit on the scalability piece. So we use best-in-class, the newest state-of-the-art technologies, right? So we're built on top of AWS. We're using containerization. So we use Kubernetes to manage all of our server infrastructure. We use S3, which is literally the most resilient data storage platform out there. We're using things like Redis, DynamoDB. We're using Nginx, and actually a special variant of Nginx that was actually invented by Cloudflare, which is powering 10% of the internet right now. And then on top of that, we're using a very horizontally scalable piece of load balancer called the Global Accelerator. And then on top of that, there's a DDoS protection layer that Amazon also offers called Shield, so that when your site gets DDoSed, AWS takes care of it for you. And all of this is being managed by Terraform, right? And then on top of that, it's not just one data center. So we actually have multiple data centers all over the world to make sure that when your clients' websites, when your customers enter the URL onto the browser, they actually get routed to the closest data center that we have. So if you're sitting in Seattle, you'll get routed to US West, which is sitting in Portland. If you're sitting in Romania and you go to a Webflow website, you're going to get routed to Frankfurt. So these are the things that we are doing for you so that you guys don't have to. On top of that, I touched on a little bit of this already, but we're doing pen testing, we're doing regular compliance, security checks. We actually have a DDoS response team for certain clients that really need it. These are all things that you don't have to do. So some of the highlights here, right? So we actually spend almost $125,000 a month managing our server infrastructure. This includes our employees. This includes our highly trained engineers. These are all people that are world-class at doing this. At any given time, there's at least 75 servers running on Webflow. And because we have this thing called auto-scaling groups, that number, 75, it could actually reach 400, 600, or even 1,000 servers in a fraction of a second. So it actually can scale with the needs of the website. And then all of this essentially adds up to be 5 nines. So we've got 99.999% uptime this year. I think we've counted around 25 seconds of downtime so far. And then in addition to the multi-data center strategy, that actually means that you get a very, very low time to first byte, so something like 400 milliseconds. On top of that, we manage your SSL for you, so these are just not things that you have to worry about anymore. You don't have to go and get a cert signed and make sure that the cert stays updated. And don't take our word for it. So Jason Green, who's here in the audience today, has been building sites for Eventbrite, and essentially he built a website in Webflow for Amstel Light, and the moment they launched on live television and on Dutch TV, they started seeing 10,000 requests per second, and we were seeing this on our stack as well. So this is like truly very scalable infrastructure, things that you don't have to do, and this essentially means that it simply doesn't make sense for people to run their own servers, start their own servers, so that you're running your own marketing site, running your own blog or e-commerce store anymore. So in the age of no code, What should a maker focus on instead? So actually, Hiten Shah, who was moderating the panel this morning with the panelists, he actually created something called the Maker Report. And the Maker Report surveyed, I think, like 300 no-code makers. And there was a question in there that essentially asked, well, in the age of no-code, where you're not worried about developing the software, writing that code, what are you worried about instead? And it's actually no surprise that a large majority of them said marketing and sales will become the biggest challenge. And essentially, marketing sales to me, as a late millennial, means that it's kind of like salesy. We're not necessarily a generation that receives sales very well, right? We don't typically think of sales as like, oh yeah, I want to be a salesman, or like when you're being sold to, it really feels like, uncomfortable. So essentially, what I've essentially observed is that in the next decade, I believe that there's going to be a rise in a concept called customer experience. So what's customer experience? So customer experience, in my opinion, is a renewed focus on the most important person in your company. When I was a junior engineer at Intuit, some of the most influential people actually worked at Intuit. In Silicon Valley, actually worked at Intuit. Those people were Brad Smith, who was the CEO of Intuit, Scott Cook, who was the founder of Intuit. And essentially every single meeting that I was in while I was working there, they relentlessly hammered home the fact that we should be starting with our customers, always. So every single product review session, every single meeting, it was just like, well, what does this actually do for the customer? So in my opinion, I think a renewed focus on customer experience, which essentially combines the best of growth, product, and marketing, can really empower modern day sales and marketing motions so that we can actually build companies that are doing things that Intuit was really good at, which is product-led growth. So what does this mean in the age of customer experience? There's actually two roles that I've put on here, and I think there's probably more. But the two roles that I actually think are going to be really important in the age of customer experience is first, the customer marketer, and then the second, the visual developer. All right, what's the customer marketer? So the customer marketer is actually someone that spans product marketing, growth marketing, as well as content marketing to really embody the biggest needs of a customer, and essentially is the first person on the front line to work with the rest of the marketing team to make sure we're producing the right content that's landing with our customers. And that person's going to work with the visual developer. We actually have visual developers on the marketing team at Webflow, and they essentially work on Webflow. And they also work on a variety of other automation platforms to essentially empower our marketing team to do things that other marketing teams, I'm sure, would be very envious of. And this is the old MarTech stack, right? So we're very familiar with the CMSs of the last decade. We're very familiar with ESPs. We're very familiar with CRMs. But I believe that Fortune 500 is starting to see the shift in the actual technology vendors that are talking about, and the CIOs that are talking about customer experience. This is at H1 on Zendesk's website, where customer experience is spelled out super clear. And then these are just some LinkedIn job titles that I found with 4 seconds of searching LinkedIn, and I end up with 4 different job titles at large public companies where there's chief customer officers as well as VPs at startups who are hiring specifically for customer leadership roles. And this also means that we have to think about the customer experience stack and all the different technology vendors and services that make customer experience something that is going to be truly transformational for products. So the arrow goes from the user, so essentially the very top of the lifecycle all the way down to the nitty-gritty of the stack. So on the very, very top, we're starting with personalization and AI. So these are tools like Mutiny, which just came out. These are data platforms like Clearbit that give you enriched profiles of your customers. And these are also AI tools like MonkeyLearn, MadKudu, which take some of the user attributes to make sure that you're delivering the best possible customer experience that's personalized on the next stack. And then a stack below that is the experience and commerce layer. And the experience and commerce layer is essentially where your customers go to transact with your business, to experience your brand for the very first time. And that's essentially the trends that we've been seeing at Webflow, where companies are adopting Webflow specifically because it's really good at providing the best customer experience. Below that, you have things like lifecycle data and automation. And these are also going to be really important in the age of customer experience. So Zendesk, definitely a very strong public company. They're doing $1.2 billion this year. Tools like Iterable, ActiveCampaign, they really make sure that your customers are getting the right message at the right time, at the right channels. Data, Segment is a really big and large player and rising player in this space. Data warehouses are going to be really important. Tools like Snowflake, this is where your data is going to live and be accessed with all the other tools. And then on top of it, automation. So tools like Parabola, tools like Retool, tools like Zapier, they take the data, they take the personalization, and they automate it. They send this data to the right places so other tools can leverage them. So essentially, the stack is the landscape, but how does it look like in motion? And how it looks like in motion is that we're positing that the website is going to be the center of your business's marketing wheel and the marketing inertia. And that's because that's going to be the first place that your customers go to experience your brand. Then, when you're typing in a form, let's say it's a lead gen form, that lead gen form should be customized. It should be personalized. That data gets passed to Zapier. That data gets passed to HubSpot, Salesforce. And essentially, that's, in my opinion, what's going to be the really exciting thing about customer experience in the future, where you're really thinking about customer experience from a holistic standpoint. You're using the best-in-class tools to provide that. So it's no longer 2009. We've seen the rise of mobile. Cloud computing has taken off. CMSs are everywhere. The Jamstack is everywhere. ESPs, CRM. But it's 2020, actually. And we're really thinking about servers. Are we really thinking about updating your Linux kernels? Are you ready to ditch your servers? Are you ready to embrace being customer-focused? Here at Webflow, we are, and we're here to serve you, and we hope to be a part of the journey every step of the way. Thank you.